Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Parent Yap. We're yapping today about our favorite cold and flu season, as well as some holiday travel tips. I'm Emily, president and co founder of the Joy Parenting Club, and I'm joined by my incredible co host, Maddie. Hello.
Hello.
And our guests for the day, three fabulous, inspiring moms and pediatricians, doctor moms, professional, badass ladies of My Pediatrician Friend. And we are so excited to partner with you guys, get all of our questions answered, and have you yap with us about the topic of the day. But first, introduce yourself, and then we can dive right in.
I'm Hadley Brighton. I am a mom to two boys. I live in New York City. I'm a pediatric hospitalist, so I spend my time in the hospital with newborns that are just born and then children that are admitted because they're sick with some sort of illness. And I am coming to you from Florida, where I'm visiting my family. And I just had the travel with my children this morning, starting at 4 in the morning. So we are caffeinated and hanging on. I'll pass it to Saskia.
Hello. So I am also coming to you from Florida. We also decided to travel for the holidays. So I am a mom to three girls. My girls are older. They're getting into that teenage stuff. I have a 13-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 9-year-old. I am an outpatient pediatrician. So I'm the doc you bring your kids to for well visits, for sick visits, that kind of stuff. And I recently stopped working at my full-time job. And now my full-time job is my pediatrician friend.
And I am Brooke Spector. I am the third of the co-founders for My Pediatrician Friend. I am the mom to, I guess I'm kind of the middle of the pack. I have a 5-year-old little son slash dinosaur and a 8-year-old daughter. I am also double certified in both general pediatrics as well as pediatric hospital medicine. So like Hadley, I also take care of babies when they're first born in the hospital and also take care of older people up until they're around 21 years of age when they get admitted to the hospital. So I am not coming to you from Florida. I am coming to you from New York City, where it is somehow not as cold as it usually is this time of year. So I'm not going to complain about that. But we are so excited to be here yapping with you guys. And we love this topic. It is near and dear to our hearts, both in terms of being a parent and also as a pediatrician.
Love it. Thank you. Welcome. Saskia, what is My Pediatrician Friend? Tell us about it.
Of course. So, My Pediatrician Friend is a text based subscription service where you can text three pediatrician moms, me, Brooke, and Hadley, questions you have about your child's health. So, we're not taking away your regular doctor. We're not trying to be telehealth. We're really for that in between Google and your pediatrician. So when you leave the pediatrician's office and they told you, your child has a virus, go take Tylenol Motrin, and you're like, which Tylenol Motrin? Well, how much? What if they spit it up? That's where we come in. We're really there to be your support, to help you guide you through those questions. Yeah, so that's what we've been doing. It's been great.
Like Em said, we are so glad to have you guys, so excited to yap about this today. But I especially love that it's just another opportunity to bring my pediatrician friend to the masses, our masses of listeners, all 10 of you.
Wrongs.
We talk a lot about that at Joy, replacing that like 2 a.m. Google spiral. There are so many unknowns as a new parent. And we get a ton of questions as parent coaches at Joy about those very things. It's like, we went to the pediatrician. They said everything's fine. There's nothing to do, but my baby's really sick. We're not sleeping. And, there are certain things that we can recommend that have worked for us as moms. But it's so awesome to know now that we have my pediatrician friend to say, oh, we got some ladies you can call. It's just so awesome. And we're so glad to have you guys. So it is cold and flu season. Somehow we're here again. It's mid-November. And it is also the week of Thanksgiving, so people are preparing for what is likely the first holiday travel of the season, and that kind of just compounds germ exposure. We know that parents out there have a range of tolerance when it comes to germ exposure. I think about myself and some of my friends who are like, bring on the germs. The more the better. Let's crank up this immune system early. I got pictures from my sister-in-law who's traveling with my nieces. They were at Logan Airport playing on the little kids play area. My 9-month-old niece had her tongue out toward the metal
Yes.
airplane. I was
Yeah.
just like, "Yep, nope, she's gonna."
Yep.
And then there are some families across the spectrum and some who are so nervous about cold and flu season. The news can be really scary around these viruses that infants get, lots of questions around vaccines. Okay, what's happening this time of year? Why do viruses spike this time of year? What about winter brings on the germs?
So, cold and flu season and kind of this connection with winter and what does cold and flu season even mean is a great kind of starting question. So many times people kind of misunderstand the term or what we as doctors think of when we think of the word cold. So a head cold is actually a virus. And a virus can be lots of different forms. So, of course, there is the rhinovirus, which is the virus that most people think of that causes the common head cold. But really, any virus can cause a head cold. That same virus that can cause a head cold can also cause other illnesses, be the same strain, and cause something different in different people. So that's a lot of times why things can get so confusing because unfortunately, medicine is just super confusing.
I
But
agree.
when we say cold season, we don't just mean head colds. We mean all the viruses. So, rhinovirus, RSV is a big one that's getting a lot of press recently, paraflu, metapneumovirus, coronavirus, like the OG coronavirus,
Ugh.
not a COVID. So, there's kind of all of these very common viruses that we as pediatricians are all very comfortable and familiar with. And that is kind of what we talk about with cold and flu. Why winter? So these viruses are around all the time, right? It's not like all of a sudden they like go and hide and then they like pop out. So they're always around, but they have things that happen in the wintertime that allow them to be around more and to be stronger and spread more easily. So a big thing is the weather in terms of the cold weather allows them to live longer and be stronger. And the decrease in the humidity allows the particles to actually spread more easily. So, part of it is the
Mm.
actual kind of dryness and coldness itself. Another one that people talk about a lot and makes sense is that people are more indoors rather than meeting outside, meeting in the park, spending time outside. You're spending time inside and you're spending time inside with the windows closed. So, that in itself is also going to increase the transmission of viruses. And then lastly is kind of that your body itself is a little bit more set up to take those viruses in. One of the biggest ways that we fight viruses is through the nose. The nose is actually really protective, but in the winter it gets really dry and it kind of like gets all irritated. And so all of a sudden that really big barrier of kind of protecting from ourselves is kind of not as great as it used to be. So those are kind of the reasons why we see these viruses so much more during the winter.
It's funny, as you're saying these things, I'm like, "Well, obviously." Like, and you're like, "Dry nose," as I'm like, "Ooh, my
Yeah,
nose feels very dry right now."
yeah.
And I think about some of the common things that we recommend to parents, like using a cool mist humidifier by the
Mhm,
bed can be
mhm,
so helpful. I'm like, "Why don't I have my humidifier plugged in?"
mhm.
Like, get with it. No, that's so interesting, and that's such a helpful framing because I think as this time of year approaches, parents' anxiety around it heightens a little bit, especially like you said, RSV gets a lot of, coverage in the news lately. And obviously it still feels a little bit fresh out of a really scary pandemic when a
Mhm.
virus shut down the world. So you listed out a bunch of different viruses. I think some parents will be familiar with some, maybe all, maybe none. But I love how you said, like, you guys as pediatricians are super comfortable handling all of those things. But for a parent, what is the line? Your child at any age has a virus. What are some things that are totally normal and some things that you really should go and see your pediatrician for and perhaps take some next steps?
So, with all viruses, you know, unfortunately, most viruses bring fevers. And I feel like when parents hear that their child has a fever, they panic. But I want to reassure everyone, fevers are not a reason to panic. There are things we look. There fevers can be high, low. It kind of depends on the kid or the child, or the kid and the virus. So Brooke and I have kids that have high fevers, like 105, 106 with a virus. Meanwhile, their sibling will get the same virus, barely reach 101. Completely normal. It really just depends on the child and the virus. Things we look for that would make us concerned are if they're having trouble breathing, or they're not drinking enough and not peeing enough, or like the fever goes away and then a day later it comes back. Those would be reasons to not necessarily panic, but just to alert your pediatrician, see if you need to be seen or things like that. Those would be reasons to be concerned. But otherwise, regular viruses can cause fevers, they can cause congestion, they can cause cough. All of those are normal. It's your body's response to the virus, and it's a normal way to fight it off.
I love that you just brought up different fevers for different kids. I have one of each. My youngest gets really high fevers, and she was a NICU baby. And the first time she got a high fever,
Mhm.
I was like about to
Yeah.
call 911. I took her straight to the emergency room,
Yep.
and they were like, "She's perfectly fine. She's a high fever." And I was like, "Oh, I know. You're right." Like that was a little dramatic. But I think, you hear even those early days, like a fever for a newborn is like anything over 100.4. And high fevers, I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, is she going to have a febrile seizure? Is she going to get brain damage from this? Can you
Yeah.
guys talk a little bit about how high fevers can be a good thing? It's
I feel like I
Yeah.
have to give this to Brooke because Brooke's child spikes to like 106 and this is her real life.
I used to lie to the rest of my family about my kids' fevers because I knew that it caused them too much anxiety. So I would like take the temperature of my daughter. It would be like 105, 104.7. And my mom would be like, "What is it?" I'm like, 102.
cool
Just
102.
cool 102. We're good. Because I knew that as a pediatrician was not concerned. This is what my daughter does. Even know like the back of her neck is gonna get really hot. She's gonna have a certain look to her. You kind of really just start to know your child's and know what they're gonna look like, which is why listening to a parent is so important all the time. But having said that, the reason why is that different people's bodies are just going to respond differently. So the fever itself is not being caused by the virus. It's being caused by your body revving up and fighting that virus. So these are all things that are just showing that your body is doing its job. I know we're kind of talking more about fevers right now, but coughs are the same thing. Like coughs are an amazing way that the body is protecting itself, healing itself, moving things around. Don't get me wrong, it's so annoying to hear it. It's annoying to have it. But these are all things that are showing, like, hey, like my body is doing what it needs to do. And it's helping to.
Also, if you're worried, but it sounds like it really is like a case by case situation.
I think that we should highlight that one, if you have a baby under 2 months old who has a fever,
Exactly.
go to your doctor, go to the emergency room. You can call your doctor on the way. And then two, we're talking about like healthy children with regular viruses. There are other things that if your child has an underlying condition and you have to pay closer attention, please do not disregard that. That's super important. And your pediatrician knows you best. Your pediatrician also is happy to see you. We are happy to see sick kids. So like and make them feel better and kind of give that reassurance. So there's no hesitation in seeing your doctor. We're just giving a little bit of a tip for at home.
I love it. Okay, so all of this is happening really like November to February, which also coincides with the holidays. Travel can be really impacted by your kids getting sick or you getting sick, or can also expose you to more germs. So, what are some of the ways that parents can prepare ahead of time for the season in general, but also as they're preparing to with their kids while germs are hot, getting in our nose?
Getting in our nose. So I think there's so many ways to look at this, right? One of them is like everybody's level and comfort is going to be different. Even amongst the three of us, I think we approach things a little bit differently. I would say like I consider myself like medium germaphobe. Like I do bring Clorox wipes. I do wipe my child's tray table because I've seen him lick it and he'll lick the seatbelt and I watch him turn around and lick the back of the chair. And I do my best just to minimize what I'm bringing into our family gatherings. But I think part of it too is sort of being prepared. That I was saying the times that I haven't been prepared or like brought the medicine is the time that my child got hand, foot, and mouth on our trip and from the kids club, right? And I didn't have any Tylenol. And I was literally like asking a mom on a plane, I'm like, I'm a doctor, but you don't need to know that. Can I have your Tylenol? So I think being a little bit prepared can help, just the basic stuff, right? Like I'm always going to pack children's Tylenol, children's Motrin. I usually throw in Zyrtec for an allergic reaction. I generally will bring like the basic supplies with me so that most of the stuff, like if things pop up, I can manage it as we go and it doesn't throw a huge wrench in it because like of course it's always going to happen in like the middle of the night or in the most inconvenient time and you're at your parents and they don't have children's medicine or something like that. So I think a little preparation goes a long way.
And then you feel so good about yourself that you brought it. You're like, "I'm
Yeah.
so
But
prepared. I
also
got."
yes, and I feel like when I bring it, I don't need it, but if I don't bring it, it's, like, always some big dramatic thing where it's like I'm inconveniencing someone massively to go pick up something for me. So now I just have to bring it everywhere so my kids are less sick. But I feel like preparation goes a long way, and then kind of deciding what's, like, your comfort level and, what makes you kind of where you live on that zone, and then you're allowed to live there. Like, we might not all align, and we're all okay with that. That's everyone's different kinda comfort level with the germ exposure.
Love to hear from Brooke and then Saskia what you guys do or don't wipe down on travel.
You really don't wanna ask me this question. I am your sister, basically. But honestly, like, I when I'm traveling with my kids, there's so much going on. I am trying to figure out how to make sure they have snacks, where they are, like, are they fighting each other in the middle of the aisle at this point? I'm like, there's just so many other things going on, and honestly, they're probably dirtier than, the tree table or just as dirty as the tree table at this point. So, I am kind of a little bit on the different end of the spectrum, but I do love hand washing. Hand washing always, I think, is something that feels really good and something that, I do that. I just don't really wipe down the surfaces.
What about hand sanitizer for kids? I think is it under 6 months or under a year you're really not supposed to use hand sanitizer?
Say nothing is hard and fast. I generally don't use hand sanitizer on little kids that are putting their hands into their mouth because they were just gonna eat the hand sanitizer. Hand washing is always gonna be better because it removes more material stuff, but when you're in a pinch and you need hand sanitizer, that's fine. Do I bring it with me? Definitely. Do I have my kids sanitize their hands before they eat? Definitely, but it's not if they're gonna be, like, little kids sticking their hands right into their mouth. You don't want them to just, like, eating all that hand sanitizer.
I know there are some products out there makes like an alcohol-free sanitizer that's like
Mhm.
foam or they have the wipes. I used to use those a lot. I felt like, okay, this is like a good in between
Mhm. Yeah.
after like the playground and then they're like hoovering french fries and you're
Yep.
just like, oh, you might as well
Like,
have
the
licked the plate
pacifier
structure.
falls on the ground, and then the pacifier.
Wait, that's definitely how my son got hand, foot, and mouth. He, like they it was, like, in the kids club, and they said, like, send them with their passy or their cozy, whatever, and they were all just sharing them and giving each other hand, foot, and mouth, and I'm
Do
like,
you wanna know, Emily has heard me say this so many times, I am not a germaphobe, like, almost nothing grosses me out. As
mhm.
a parent, hand, foot, and mouth
It's
is like a horror show, trigger, like, the whole both of my kids have had it. I had it last year so bad, the doctor
you
was like,
got it.
"Grown-ups don't get it," and I was like, "What is this then?
Oh.
This is it." But it is like when I hear that kids have hand, foot, and mouth, I'm just like, "Oh my god."
I
It's just
know.
so I don't know why. It's like anything else, but it
Mhm.
gets me. And, like, kid club hand, foot, and mouth is
Yeah,
especially like,
gnarly,
"Oh."
yep. Yep, yep, yep.
Alright, Saskia, where do you fall on the, like, clean your kids are a little bit older, so that changes.
Yeah, so that's what I was just gonna say. I kind of am a mixture of both Hadley and Brooke. So when I was younger, when my kids were younger, I had 3 kids very close in age. So when they got sick, it was like a nightmare. I had 3 little babies. I lost my mind. So when they were younger, I was probably worse than Hadley. I was, like, spraying the people around me, like, I was sanitizing everything. And now, like, I just got on a plane with my oldest and was like, "Peace, here's some hand sanitizer if you want, but I don't really care." So now I don't touch anything. I don't hand sanitize, nothing. So it really changes as they get older because their immune system is better. They've learned to fight off all these viruses. They've built up all these antibodies, so they don't get sick as much. So I'm more towards Brooke now.
I love that, and I think it's such a good reminder to have 3 pediatricians here who are all equally knowledgeable and trained and have all this experience in hospitals, have just 3 different approaches, and it is such a good reminder that you know your kids best, you know your comfort level best. Some people are fine with their kids being sick November to February. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm resigned to it." And some people aren't. And I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as parents to make sure, like, my kids aren't getting sick. Like, I don't want my kids to get sick. I don't want them exposed to germs. And we don't really have a lot of control over it.
And it's not
Exactly.
your fault if your
Right.
child is sick.
So
You're not a
true.
bad mom,
Mm-mm.
right?
Yes,
I
so
mean,
true. I really do think if everybody just washed their hands, like, if we all just were better about
We'd
hand
be in a
washing,
better space.
what would the world be, you know? It's so funny to think about, but kids are gross, what can you do?
Yeah.
And that's the thing too is, like, kids are gross. They are using
Gross.
each other's pacifiers. They are wiping snot and then, like, swiping it on their friend's face. It's like no amount of wiping down on the plane, hand washing before school, hand washing before meals can prevent that in a childcare situation, a play date situation. So, yeah,
Yeah.
you just got to prepare.
No, it's so true. And honestly, pediatricians, kids get sick all the time. And it's because there's no way to control it. And honestly, like kids, it's not so much that they need to get sick, but there's no real way around it. And especially if you want them to be out in the world and you want them to have wonderful relationships with people that where they're not afraid to get close to someone. They're not afraid of, holding hands and, being close with people, that they don't have anxieties around things on the playground. And so in order to really allow, children to experience the world and feel comfortable in it and explore, they're going to come across germs and that's okay. And again, minimizing them like, the best ways we can, great. But, my overall goal is to really raise children that are going to explore and get out there and be part of, the community and the world. And that's kind of my, number one.
I would agree with that. I feel like I live in a building, so the kids are like in a playroom together, and you can imagine what that looks like in the winter. It's gnarly, and like in an outdoor space together. And I think for me, it's like a trade off. It's worth the germs for like the amount of socialization they get and like all their friendships and all the incredible stuff that they learn from other kids. Was it nasty when hand, foot, and mouth hit the whole
Yeah.
building? Yeah, it was repulsive. Like everybody in the elevator had hand, foot, and mouth, and you were just like, we're all going through it together. This is miserable. The trade off is like the socialization. And I think that's pretty priceless.
When one person gets sick in a family, chances are it's a patient zero situation.
Mhm.
And being run down as a parent, being sick, trying to parent can feel next to impossible. And so I guess less of a question and more of just like any tips for parents in the moments when like either to prevent that from happening or to just sort of save yourself and your energy or I don't know, parent in the most effective way when your home is just sort of turned upside down.
So I can actually say I was up all night with my daughter vomiting last night. As the one who doesn't wipe down the but what I will say and kind of what I've had from the beginning with my children is one of the greatest gifts that we can give them as a parent when they are sick is comfort and closeness. And so for me, and I have actually, especially as my kids even started getting older, even 2 or 3, when they were like started to recognize, like, Mommy, I don't want you to get sick. So I would just very much, I said, moms don't get sick from their children. Because I just
That's so
wanted
sweet.
them to not have, I wanted them to be able to find comfort in my arms, for like the back rubs to mean more than anything sometimes in those moments. I mean, fevers were them in me. I don't think I ever had my daughter vomit not on me for like the first 4 years of her life. And it just in that instance for myself, I just feel like it is the biggest thing that I can give them is to not kind of keep them away or have some sort of, gloves or mask or things like that, that I'm kind of stepping away. But I also say that as someone who's aware that I am lucky that I don't have some sort of underlying condition or treatment that I'm going through. But big things, hand washing like always, changing your clothes if your kid was just kind of rubbing all over you can be helpful, and wiping down kind of high touch areas. So like doorknobs and,
Mhm.
and things that your kids are touching a lot can be helpful.
Wait, I
Sure.
actually just said this to my husband yesterday. I was like, I've heard like the flu might be a little rough. Have you gotten your flu shot? And he was
Yeah.
like, no. I was like, you're gonna need to do that because we don't have time for this. Like
Truly.
you can't get the flu at all.
Especially not the hand flu.
The man flu.
That's literally what I said in a nicer, probably in a meaner way.
We don't have time for that.
Yeah, I
This
was
We
is a
don't
like,
have
man flu.
time
we
for
do not
you to
have time
be
for that.
sick. Okay. So funny. I'm so glad you just brought up vaccines, Hadley, because that is a question that I have personally as a mom around like flu shots, COVID shots. But I woke up in the middle of the night 2 nights ago and was like, Mike, I forgot. I didn't take my girls don't have their flu shot yet. And they're traveling this week with their dad. And I was like, that's so bad. Once kids are of age to get these kind of seasonal vaccines, when do you guys recommend that you give them to your kids if you're going to?
Often, so we like to remember that for the flu shot, for example, it takes a couple weeks to build up that immunity. So you want to get the shot with a little bit of time before the idea is like before a big holiday gathering or before travel. But again, like nothing is black and white, and because you didn't get your child a flu shot, like, that it's fine. We are all doing the best we can. You remember when you can, and you try and make it happen. So, we don't like to kinda shame that. Often, people will use, like, the end of October or November as kind of, like, the reminding time to get the flu shot with the concept of waiting kind of 2 weeks before or, like, knowing that it'll take about 2 weeks to kick in.
But they do offer it as early as August, just because this is what I did as an outpatient
Mhm,
pediatrician.
mhm,
We do offer it as early as August. I think August is a little early, but that's the best time for you to remember, like, before back to school, get it done.
mhm.
Get it done and over with. And you can get the flu shot usually up until, like, April or May is usually when the last shipments of it come before they make a new one for the next year. So, that's the time frame that the flu shot is usually available. Because every year it's a new flu shot based on what they predict the flu strains will be the next year.
So
Hot off
fascinating.
the
Okay, good to
press,
know.
flu shot.
What about for some vaccines for adults, the vaccine can trigger symptoms of a virus as your body is responding and building that immunity. Is that a concern for kids getting the flu shot? Are kids going to get flu symptoms? Are kids going to feel sicky? Is their immune system less able to fight off germs right after they have their flu shot?
Yeah. So what I can say is that they are not going to get the flu from the flu shot. And I can just be so clear on that. But like anything, right? What you're doing when you're giving the flu shot is you're triggering your immune system to work. What's funny to me is the concept of the fact that vaccines are one of the most kind of natural things we can do. And that gets lost all the time. And I know we could have, 3 hours just on vaccines, so I won't go too deep. But the whole point of vaccines is to allow the body to do its natural thing in a controlled way. So your body's immune system is revving up a little bit. So that's why sometimes the muscle will get a little warm. They might get a little achy. They might feel a little bit not great. And so, I kind of never really would make plans when my kids were young for the day that they got their flu shot just in case they weren't feeling great. But they are not going to get the flu from the flu shot.
I'm gonna add about the flu shot though is that like the point of the flu shot is to prevent like hospitalization or severe illness from the flu. And so I just always highlight like yes, your child might have gotten a flu shot and they still might get the flu, but hopefully it will be less severe than if they didn't have a flu shot. And when we are taking care of kids in the hospital from flu, we just like want to hammer that message home, right? It's not to fully prevent the flu, it's to prevent severe effects from the flu.
That's a great clarification. Yes, I think about that a lot when people talk about COVID vaccine, all of these different shots versus vaccinating against, like the MMR vaccine
Right.
prevents you from getting measles, mumps, and rubella.
Right.
Flu shot doesn't prevent you from getting the flu, it lessens the severity.
So well said.
Okay, I forget which one of you just alluded to this, but talking about family members who might be higher risk. And I think about that a lot around holiday season. We're traveling maybe to see aging grandparents, people might just be generally immunocompromised. Are there situations where you would recommend, like, you know what, if your child is this sick or sick with this,
Or
maybe
mission.
don't have everybody over for turkey dinner?
Yeah. I mean, and again, I think there's going to be different levels of people's comfort with this. I think one of the biggest things to do is to just be really open, and have discussions. So, for me, especially with the fact that I have two children, and myself who and my husband who do not have underlying conditions. And so I am able to have more comfort and to recognize that being together with family for me is going to be worth a certain number of illnesses. So if I have a family member who says, listen, like, I'm so sorry, but like my child, threw up last night. If you're not comfortable with us coming, I will absolutely understand, but I just wanted, to see your thoughts. And I think that people, you just need to kind of be a little bit more open and honest and having those types of conversations rather than feeling the pressure to make this decision for everybody else. Because you might have someone say, like, absolutely not. I want to see you guys so badly. Like, please come. Or you might have someone say, actually, like, we have something really big next week. There's some stuff, other stuff going on. We have a trip of a lifetime, anything. And, I'm actually feeling really uncomfortable about it. And so I think we just need to kind of allow ourselves to talk.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like so much of that got lost during the pandemic where there was so
Yeah.
much judgment
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
around exposing your kids or your family or yourself or people who you might not even know have underlying conditions. The idea that like you could be exposing them to this deadly virus,
Well,
the judgment around that got
and I
hard.
think the tolerance of people, like, you hear a sneeze and people's, like, but or, like, even for school, like, the school
Yeah.
nurse calls sort of like you see the name of the school and you're like, "Oh, we're in for something. It's a strep situation." But right, but, like, I feel like the joke is when we were young, kids would be, like, throwing up in a trash can and, like, heading back to class. So it feels like now the sort of, like, spidey sense of illness just sort of, like, gives us all pretty big red flags, whereas, like, to your point, Brooke, like, it might just be based on personal tolerance or, like, kids cough, like, you cough for a bunch of different reasons. It doesn't mean we're all getting pneumonia tomorrow.
I
So
definitely
true.
think there's like a pre-COVID and a post-COVID kind of cultural shift, and I think we've observed that.
Beeping.
And I think even the way that prior to COVID, right, it was children have always had viruses, and our counseling has often been like, this is likely a virus. This is what we would expect. This is when we think it would get better. But even like the concept of sometimes in the hospital, we'll do like viral panels, right, where it'll tell us like what specific virus that is. And that kind of, it's all a virus. And often we treat it the same. But it's funny because even like people's familiarity with viruses and like having to know the specific one that has infected their child, it's definitely changed a little bit. And it's interesting to see kind of how COVID shifted the experience. And I agree with you. Like there is a lot of fear and nervousness around illness, and illness is part of life and it's part of childhood. And we sort of have to figure out how to navigate around that in the best way possible.
We have this weird situation where, like, when a kid's sick in my, like, social circle, we're, like, hoping for it to be strep because you think that, like, you take the antibiotic and it'll be better so soon, whereas opposed to, like, "It's viral." It's like this, like, "It's no!" Right? Because it's like, we're in it for a week, whereas, like, the antibiotic feels like obviously, you don't wanna put your kid on antibiotics
Right.
necessarily or, like, yourself, God forbid, but, like, the idea of this being, like, a fix feels like a godsend as opposed to like, having an answer that can be solved. Do you guys find
I don't
parents in that mindset ever?
Sure, definitely. I mean, when you have an
People love
answer to
answers.
a question, yeah, exactly. When you have an
Mhm.
answer to a question, you have a solution,
Mhm.
reason, check, done. A virus is so vague. There's so many different kinds, so many different varieties. You don't know
Mhm.
how long it's gonna take. When is it no longer contagious? Like with an antibiotic, you start it, 24 hours later, you're no longer contagious.
Right.
A virus is so
It's more
vague.
satisfying for everyone,
Yes,
including
yeah.
us. We get it. We get it.
Well, one thing that we hear about all the time is like, "Oh, like my child's had an ear infection this whole time," or, "Oh, an ear infection was missed," or, "Oh, this is what was causing the symptoms." And it's so interesting because again, it's that need for an answer, but a ear infection almost always comes in the setting of a virus. So
Yeah.
it's almost always that you have a virus and it sets you up to then get an ear infection halfway through the virus. So one, it's not that anyone missed the ear infection early on. And two, it's not that the ear infection was causing this the whole time. And so a lot of that becomes like guilt. I missed an ear infection for the past 4 days. I should have started on antibiotics earlier. And so it's interesting that there is just this kind of latching on to something that is easily diagnosed and easily treatable.
I'm cracking up, Em, because I'm the same way. As soon as the girl's like, my throat hurts, I'm like, strep, baby, let's do this.
Yes.
Right in, wrap this up.
Take medicine.
I know, that's funny.
And same with an ear infection. I'm like, all right. But the virus thing, you're just like, whew, because you don't know. And it's as every other thing with parenting, the unknown is so
Mhm.
scary. And I think something that I've heard more and more recently, and it's funny because I was talking to one of our parent coaches about this morning. Her daughter woke up in the middle of the night saying her ear hurt really badly. So, of course, this morning she took her to the pediatrician to get checked. It's like on the cusp. And her pediatrician said, you know what? If she's in pain, it's like looking like it's on its way to an infection. Put her on antibiotics if you want. It also could run its course. And she is racked with guilt on this decision. I finally said to her, cancel the analysis on this one because so much of it is the guilt because now too there's so much more information around antibiotic resistant strains of things destroying your gut for antibiotics. And I think your whole parenting world is just one big guilt cycle. Do
Always.
I, don't I? You're guilty either way. And I would love to talk about that a little bit, like the decision to put your kid on antibiotics or let something run its course if it is something that could run its course.
And something that could be a decision. Sometimes it's like, this is
If
the
she's
answer.
positive for strep,
Exactly.
bing,
Yeah.
bing.
Right. So, I mean, that is completely what we do for my pediatrician
Yeah, I
friend.
was like, you
It's
are that's our zone right there.
This is our
Yeah.
zone, right? So it's really helping empower and feel comfortable around informed decision making. Because a lot of times, in this world now, parents do have these decisions and there's so much online both ways. And now all you're doing is getting stuck mental loading this and you're not thinking about anything else. And you're just kind of going down these Google rabbit holes. And so really just being able to say, okay, here, these are the pluses and minuses, and tell me what's important to you, what's happening in your life right now, what's your goals. And that's going to inform a lot of our decisions. Like if you have a flight in 2 days, like go on those antibiotics and get it moving so that, you don't have an ear infection on the plane. But if your kid just had antibiotics twice this summer for urinary tract infection or something else, and you're like, I would rather wait and give a pause and try and but then also we can give some other things, right? Try some Motrin every 6 hours to really help with the pain. Give it a day and see how it and see if it gets better. So, and I mean, I think even amongst us, we would make different decisions at different moments in our lives. And that's really kind of what we do is kind of help navigate those more difficult, nuanced decisions.
And situations change, like even for kid to kid. Like 1 hour they seem fine, and then 3 hours later they're like, "Oh, just kidding, everything changes." So it's nice to be able to just text right away and be like,
Right.
"Just kidding. You know what I told you before? Now that's all different." Versus you're at your pediatrician and then you leave an hour later, everything's gone different. So it's
Yeah, it's so tough.
one of the things we love to do.
Do you guys recommend probiotics for kids taking antibiotics these days?
So it depends on how long you're taking it in terms of how big of a push, but we never think that probiotics are bad. There is so much research already, but there's honestly so much more to come in terms of the microbiome and how all of that works. But having said that, doesn't mean you have to buy probiotics in the store. You could also have yogurt, which is wonderful. And there's kind of lots of other, natural ways of really being able to build up that microbiome, breastfeeding for younger babies. And so, really being mindful of that, but we don't really ever say no to probiotics as they can be quite helpful.
The anxiety that I model for my children, I can see in them sometimes where I'll be like,
Mhm.
"You gotta do this. You're gonna get sick. You're gonna get sick."
Mhm.
I can see them like, "Oh, am I sick? That must be really bad. Like, that must be like a horrible thing," right? So, I don't know. I just feel like I gotta check myself sometimes.
Mhm.
Yes,
But
and
I
health
think that awareness is so powerful because 'cause you're right. Sometimes we have to just, like, tell ourselves we have to sort it out, but also the feeling that you guys are describing, like, we are not immune to that feeling. When it's our own children, we are loco. Like, we are texting each other, we are spinning, we're spiraling because it's your own kid and you just lose that perspective where, like, Maddie, probably talking about your friend's child is a lot easier when it's not your own, right? Because 'Cause you're like, "Okay, I can see it. I can see
100%.
this, and I can see this, and I can help you make this decision." But when it's your own, it's like suddenly like the guilt just overpowers every rational thought. And you're just like, I screwed this up. And ask them. Like my son broke his foot recently and I was texting them from Florida, like having a panic attack because I failed at something. And they were like, this is not a crisis. Like it's just it is so natural to feel that way. And we feel that way about our own kids. And like we do it to each other. So our phones are buzzing with like other people and each other too.
No, it's such a good reminder. Thank you for saying that. I feel so lucky to not only have great friends who I can have these spiral conversations with, please, but at work too. Look at all these amazing ladies who are just here for all of you listening to be like, hey, it's 2 a.m. I'm spiraling. And we're like, and we got you.
Yeah, we know the
It's
feeling.
so
Well, it
great.
sounds like a lot of what you do, yes, it's medical advice, but it's like medical emotional support, it sounds like, right? Because like they might go to their pediatrician in person to get that medical support or that sort of like, recommendation as to what to do. But it sounds like between those visits, I mean, it's probably both, right? Like,
Mhm.
especially maybe parents of newborns, I can imagine it's a lot of emotional support as well. And sometimes it just feels so good to have someone else thinking about the same things you're thinking about, because when you're left to be the advocate or you're left to be like the investigator, that can really raise anxiety because you're like, well, no one else is. If not me, who? Who's gonna like ask the right questions, or how do I even know what to ask? And I think your service is just to have someone else who's like in it with you. And I'd say like same for parent coaching or whatever, to have someone else who's on your team thinking about those questions or being like, you know what? Like, you have a partner in the anxiety, not even in the anxiety, but in the process with you.
Yes.
Totally, like a
Totally.
sounding board that has some information to give you as well.
Totally.
Makes all the
Yeah.
difference. It's the village, ladies. It's
It's
the
the
It's the village.
village.
And it's like it's also like the navigating, right? It's like I have this thing that I'm thinking about. I don't even know which way to start too, right? So sometimes it's also like pushing people in the right direction. Like, where does this make sense? And what are you asking? And what are you thinking about next? Which can be so helpful.
I want to ask like a couple quick little takeaways and then we will wrap up. What are some of your go to home remedies when your kid has a virus? When the pediatrician says, sorry, amoxicillin will not help you today. What do you do for your kids when you get home from that appointment?
So I love for now, this is really important. This is a really important caveat. For kids over 1 year of age, I love honey. Honey for coughs is just, I mean, my grandma used to do this. And then I realized, even as a doctor, there is actual medical reasons behind this. But honey is such a natural cough suppressant. So for my kids, whenever they either have a sore throat or a cough, I'll take a little bit of honey. I squeeze a little bit of fresh lemon juice in it to kind of cut it, and I mix it around, and then I give them kind of 2 spoonfuls of it, and it kinda coats their throat and helps, and so that is one. And then my other is to find the coziest pajamas for both of us, wrap ourselves together, put the blanket around us, and put on their favorite TV show. And that cozy distraction moment is, like, the number one, for me.
I feel like I don't do a ton of home remedies. I feel like my kids know that they're gonna get Motrin and Tylenol, and they are all about it. We switched
That's
it
your
from liquid
remedies,
to
okay.
chewables, and they're into it. And then I think ours is also probably a lot of we do a lot of, like, nasal saline, kind of, like, flushing stuff out. And I think for the boys, because they can do it themselves now, they can sort that out themselves. I think they like it more because they used to be, like, a big fight. But otherwise, I mean, we also just ride that wave. It's not great. But also, like, one thing I'll add is that when they're really congested, just that shower alone with the steamy bathroom, it kinda combines the 2, just, like, getting them in and loosening everything up, I think can be really refreshing for all.
Kids who refuse to
I'm like, Brooke yeah, Brooke could talk to you about it all day.
Honestly, one of the most therapeutic things I ever did was to write, like, all of our tips and tricks that we have for our members about refusal. Like, it honestly felt cathartic because of all I've been through
She's lived through it.
these years. We have so many tips, a lot of it depends on different ages, but I will say that as a baby, rectal Tylenol is the biggest win.
Oh.
And, for older kids, I mean, my daughter thought that she got special chocolate ice cream every 6 hours when she was sick, because I would just mix a little bit in, like, a spoonful of chocolate ice cream, and that's gonna just be just fine. So but lots of other tips and tricks.
Okay, we'll have to follow up. Maybe we'll do a social post one
Oh,
day.
yeah.
Actually,
I
Matt.
love it, my favorite topic.
Okay, that
That's a
sounds
good one.
great.
Mixing it with ice cream.
Hadley, you said you had nothing, but then you said of all 3 of them were
Sorry, sorry,
mine.
sorry, sorry, sorry.
But I
My
will just
bad.
expand on them a little bit. So, for like medications, my kids swear by the chewables. I have a 13-year-old who will not swallow pills, but she'll take those chewables. The other ones hated the liquid. So, chewable has been life-changing for us. They even like think it's like a sweet treat. So that's one thing. For the nose, for the congestion, nasal saline is awesome. My oldest has a lot of like adenoid issues. Saline really clears it up. We also often use Flonase as well. That really helps as well with the congestion. And then steam showers. So whenever they're coughing a lot or have a lot of mucus, I put the shower on real hot. They come in my room where there's like a lot of room. I'll put some steam in there, and that really helps to break things up. So basically exactly what Hadley said, but I just expanded a bit more.
Sorry,
I love
sorry.
it.
I did it.
How young can kids get Flonase?
Flonase, I believe the age is 2 to 4, but I'll double check with that. My kids are all older, so I use that. But I believe the age is 2 or 4. I have to look on
Flonase
them.
is like under lock and key at CVS.
Everything is under lock and key, though.
Well, in
Literally,
the
you cannot
city
get
it
one
is,
thing off the
yes.
shelves. It's insane.
Yeah, it's true.
Like,
Yeah.
I think that's like a
Deodorant.
Yeah.
shoplifting problem
Yes,
versus
yes.
a medical
That's probably
safety
the case.
problem.
It is, but it's also wildly inconvenient. Yeah.
I
But it
know.
really does help a lot, especially kids with allergies where it's just like they're constantly mouth breathing because they're so congested, so swollen. The Flonase will really decrease the inflammation and lets them breathe a lot easier. It's
So
been
good to
really helpful for my
know.
oldest.
That is so cool.
What about
Okay.
those? Wait, I have one last question. I
Yeah,
think
no,
those nasal aspirate. I'm just thinking a lot of our families have newborns, and I think like kids can't blow their nose because they don't know what that means. So, is that any like products that you would recommend people have on hand like that?
Yeah, between the 3 of us, we like different ones. So, Hadley and I loved the nose Frida one. It looks really gross, but it worked so well. Brooke, you can talk about the one you love.
So I actually there is an actual bulb syringe that works, and that is the Neil Med bulb syringe. And with it kind of creates a seal right by the nose. And so and it actually does kind of pull out those more superficial ones. And my kids loved it too. So they got, even at a young age, they would start kind of doing it and doing it themselves, even before they knew how to blow their nose. But I also did love the Frida. I just also loved the Neil Med bulb syringe.
There's so many good ones out there now.
There are,
I know. There's
so
Knows
many.
best
Yes.
one. I actually, when I tried that, I like couldn't believe my eyeballs at how much came out. I was like,
I know,
that might
it's
be too
nasty.
good.
I
So I know it's so nasty too. The Frida one, I remember when it first came out, it was like when I was like pregnant with my first.
Mhm.
And one of my coworkers like, yeah, you just like shove it in there and then you suck it out. I was like,
Is there a color cue for mucus in the
Mhm.
winter or in general about like this is bacterial, this is viral,
Negative,
green
negative,
is
negative.
bad, yellow is good?
Nope,
Like,
that's one of those, like, grandma
Yeah.
old wives'
Myth,
tales.
myth.
But we get
Yeah.
that question all the time, all the time. We're like, "The nose boogers are green." We're like, "Great, that is normal." It's like your body producing mucus. It is
that is
completely
a
normal.
hot tip because
Mhm.
I thought if I'm coughing up or snotting out green or yellow, I'm like headed for the doc, but
Nope.
maybe not.
Nope,
that is
you're not.
so funny. And me too, as an adult, I'll like be really congested, blowing clear mucus, and then it turns green, and I'm like, oh, I'm sick. I'm really sick now. And I'm not. Turns out,
I'm real sick now. No,
real
you're
It
sick
good.
really
now.
is
It's
actually
green.
the immune fighting cells in your body that are creating this like greenish hue. So it's actually showing that you're fighting off the infection. It's a good sign. So just when yeah.
See?
Yeah.
Sometimes at 3:03 when you ask a last minute question, you get a little
Exactly. Emily and I, the rest of the week, are texting you guys nonstop. You're like, we're on
one last
vacation,
thing.
gal.
One more. We love
We
it.
get
That's why
it.
we do what we
Yeah,
do.
no, we do love it.
Oh, it's amazing. Okay. Well, you guys, thank you so much for being with us. This was so enlightening. I think it's going to be great for our members and our listeners to think about as they head into holiday travel, as cold and flu season's really ramping up. We appreciate you so much. We like to wrap up our episodes with a little bow that is something like yapping about cold and flu season during the holidays, where the turkey is hot and the fevers are hotter.
Yeah, like
A little something like that. Or like let me see what I actually wrote for this. About cold and flu season. Yapping about cold and flu season where the germs are traveling with you. All
That's
Well,
cute.
that's
that's
cute.
cute.
That is cute.
right.
How about
Well,
yapping with my pediatrician friend where it's like your bestie with a doc?
pediatrician friend where your best friend went to med
Yeah,
school.
exactly.
I love it. All right. Well, we're going to use all of them, guys, since
Yeah,
we're
just
all
throw
good.
it in.
Great.
Thank
There
you
you go.
guys so much for your time today. It was great to see you. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your holiday time. And I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon.
Great. This was so
Thank you so
fun.
Guys.
much.
Guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.